a meth-addicted informant, the wrong suspect, possibly even the wrong state. Yet somehow police still raided Afroman's home over kidnapping and drug trafficking claims. This could have ended very differently. When people do the most, I do the analysis. Let's go. Afroman had the cameras rolling the entire time, and he turned this whole thing into a First Amendment win. So let's talk about what really happened here, because as usual, the headlines don't go far enough to tell the entire story. So we have to talk about Afroman for a minute, because this story is one of those rare moments where music, law, and a little bit of petty all mesh together. And somehow, this whole event turned into a First Amendment victory.
Yeah! Yeah! We did it, America! Yeah! We did it! Freedom of speech! Right on! Right on! Yeah! God bless America! Yeah! Power to the people! Yeah! 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 Yeah!
So quick backstory and a little bit of history on Afroman. Born in California in 1974 as Joseph Edgar Foreman, Afroman is an American rapper, singer, musician, and he's a civil liberties activist. He's currently married with 2 children. One of Afroman's albums was nominated for a Grammy Award back in 2002 for Best Rap Solo Performance. That album featured his hit single, Because I Got High. You know the one. I was gonna go to church, but then I got high. Yeah, that one. Now, before y'all start jumping to conclusions, the state of California became the first state back in 2022 to restrict the practice of using rap lyrics in court to prosecute a defendant. Those limited protections require prosecutors to prove that the lyrics are literal and relevant, not just fictional or created by the imagination. Okay, so back in 2022, Ohio police raided Afroman's house. Yes, raided. I'm talking full-blown search warrant, kicking in the doors, the whole nine, because they suspected kidnapping and drug charges were taking place in that house. Right. You can't make this stuff up. Or can you? We'll get into that in a minute. There's a plot twist, though. They found nothing. Zilch. Nada. Not a single piece of evidence to substantiate the raid. And while all of this was happening, Afroman had home security cameras rolling the entire time. And instead of just letting it go, he did something very Afroman, if you will. He turned that footage into music. I'm talking about songs like Will You Help Me Repair My Door and the now famous Lemon Pound Cake. Those videos went viral, racking up millions of views, basically clowning the situation and the officers involved. Now, as you might suspect, the police didn't find that funny at all. But they didn't just take their ball and go home after playing in that man's face. 7 deputies ended up suing Afroman. Yeah, ain't that a kick in the head? They claimed things like defamation, emotional distress, invasion of privacy, basically saying, hey, you made us look crazy in front of the whole world. Not only that, they were asking for millions of dollars in damages. They essentially sought to profit off their racial profiling and unlawful search of Afroman's home.
Afroman in his defamation trial in Ohio. The rapper, whose real name is Joseph Foreman, is known for his 2001 hit Because I Got High. Deputies sued the rapper because Afroman made a music video about their raid on his home in 2022 as part of a drug case. The deputies demanded millions in damages, saying they faced death threats after the video was released.
And listen, this case became bigger than just Afroman. It turned into a real question of, can you mock the police using real footage? Is there a line between defamation and entertainment? And how far does freedom of speech really go?
The jury agreed that the video depicts freedom of speech.
But you see, y'all, This raid didn't come out of nowhere. Oh no, it was triggered by a quote-unquote confidential informant. Reportedly, someone struggling with addiction was feeding police information. Now that alone should raise questions, but it gets worse because the informant made accusations of kidnapping and drug trafficking taking place in that home. Those are some very serious, not to mention life-altering claims, except they weren't true. So let's pause for a moment and hear about exactly how confidential informants work. Let's listen in to see what attorney Justin Pratt has to say.
Being a confidential informant for the police comes with huge risks and has very little upside. Yet people often agree to do it because they're in a desperate situation. Here's how it usually works. The police pull somebody over for a traffic offense. They detect drugs either by smell or any other indications. They do a search, they find drugs, and then they start talking to the person about where they got the drugs from. They propose working together so that this suspect can lead the police to higher level drug offenders.
Things began to escalate, and this story starts to feel unreal because not only did they have the wrong man, there are several reports pointing to confusion between Adams County, Ohio, and Adams County, Nebraska. Come on now, that ain't no small mix-up. That's a completely different state altogether. Hell, there are a bunch of Adams counties throughout this country, so how specific or credible was the tipster when he convinced a whole team of law enforcement to raid Afroman's home? So now we got a questionable informant, serious criminal accusations, and location confusion, and all of that leads to police showing up at that man's house. Surely they cannot be serious. Except they were.
When this search happened back in August of 2022, Mr. Foreman, you weren't at home?
No.
You were driving home from Chicago?
Yes.
And you got an alert from a family member that the sheriffs were there searching your home, is that right?
Yes.
And you were able to turn on your phone and watch through your home security system what the deputies were doing for a period of time, weren't you?
Yes.
And is it fair to say you were angry and upset about this search?
I wasn't happy.
And we're not about to dance around the fact that this could have gone left. Completely left.
And is that why you posted the things we've seen this week, because you weren't happy?
No, I posted it because the sheriff's never supposed to raid my house in the first place. The whole raid was a mistake. All of this is their fault. If they hadn't wrongly raided my house, there would be no lawsuit. I would not know their names. They wouldn't be on my body. They wouldn't be on my home surveillance system. And there would be no songs, nothing. My money would still be intact, nothing. So all of this is their fault.
We've seen situations like this before where things escalate fast, especially when it involves a black man and law enforcement. A search warrant was granted on the wrong house and there were wrong assumptions. That's a very dangerous combination that could have quickly led to high tension because guess what? Afroman's wife and children were inside the house when the raid took place.
And because they executed a search warrant on your home, that gave you the right to post the things that we've seen this week on the internet?
Because
Is that right? Is that right, Mr. Foreman?
Yes, but
Yes.
tearing down my door, not paying for it, not being apologetic, me being a sport, doing something peaceful to raise the money to pay for their damages, me having the right of the freedom of speech as an American to talk to my family, friends, and fans about what the sheriffs did to my home. Yes, I had the right to my freedom of speech. After they left, I had the right to kick the can and to do what I had to do to repair the damage they brought to my house.
Can you imagine how wrong this could have actually gone? The only thing that changed the outcome here are the home security cameras.
Yes, I did.
That includes the right to post the videos that you've just been posting up until Friday and beyond, right?
Yes, I have freedom of speech. I'm a rapper. I entertain. I write fiction, comedy. Yes, I mean, I entertain for a living like you practice law for a living. So I have to go to work.
Afroman had home security cameras recording the entire raid. All of it was documented, from police entering the gates of his property, kicking down his front door, and rummaging through all that man's stuff in his home. And instead of Afroman staying quiet, he flipped it. He turned that footage into music videos, satire, commentary, straight up public exposure, and the internet, the internet ate it up. But the officers weren't the least bit amused. They were furious, and they sued him, claiming defamation, emotional distress, and of all things, invasion of privacy. Yeah, right. Basically saying, you made us look bad. I swear, if I didn't see the footage myself, I would think this whole thing was a made-up story for engagement. But it's real, y'all. And my point today is that there's a bigger issue. You can't just raid someone's home based on shaky information, first of all, and then get mad when they show people what happened. So when this bogus claim made it to court, Afroman won.
Yeah, we did it, America. Yeah, we did it. Freedom of speech. Right on, right on.
It was a full-on First Amendment victory. The court said his music, his videos, and essentially his artistic expression is all protected speech. And let's really sit with why that hits different. Because this wasn't a politician. This was a rapper. A voice that gets dismissed a lot of times. But that voice is now setting a precedent about free speech and accountability. Now, I have my own theory about why Afroman didn't file a separate lawsuit against law enforcement as he initially said he would for emotional and physical damage to his property. Because first of all, we know it was going to be a years-long journey, and then there would be this intense surveillance of Afroman, his family, his financial transactions, and any other investigation tactics you can think of. Afroman chose instead to counter the police's bogus claim, citing freedom of speech rights. But at the end of the day, the police did have the legal power to raid Afroman's home, and Afroman had the power to show the world what they did. And in the end, his cameras and the First Amendment of the Constitution backed him up. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up, share it with someone who can use this message, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so. Leave me a comment down below letting me know your thoughts. Do you believe the anonymous tip is real? And what do you think about Afroman's approach to the raid on his home? I'll try to link a couple of Afroman's songs in the description, but please don't hold me to it. Meet me in the comments. We can continue the conversation there.